As always with most games similar to Destiny like the looter shooters, a lot of the best guns do come from the harder content in the game, such as raids and also dungeons. And this is exactly the case in Destiny 2 for many years now. The best guns do come from all of the raids and the dungeons, and also a lot of the craftable weapons are also some of the best guns in the game. So in today's video, I'm going to be covering 10 amazing weapons that you can use and get right now that will perform almost as good as some of the best guns in the game. However, all 10 of these guns do not come from raids, they don't come from dungeons, and they also aren't craftable. So all of these guns, you can go ahead and buy from certain vendors, farm strikes for, do some Iron Banner, farm some PvP, whatever it is, all of these guns are very easy to obtain by every single player in the game, and especially, of course, those solo players. Now, in no particular order, all 10 of these guns are very solid weapons, so let's start off here with number 1, and of course, I have chosen the Nashas Mastery, arguably one of the best rocket-assisted sidearms currently in the game, and definitely one of the most used weapons in the game right now. Now, as we all know, this weapon comes from the Iron Banner, so unfortunately you're going to have to wait for that to come around, but once it does, I definitely recommend you dedicate the weekend to jump in there and get the God Roll Nashas Mastery, as this weapon is just unbelievable, it is amazing, and definitely the best rocket-assisted sidearm. Now, the God Roll for this weapon is Air Trigger and Chill Clip. Air Trigger is just going to increase the reserves on this gun, and then Chill Clip is obviously going to chill enemies and then also ultimately freeze them with just a couple bullets. These two perks together are just amazing. You only really need the Chill Clip. That's what makes this gun what it is. So if you can't get Air Trigger, you can go for something like Loose Change, Impulse Amplifier, Enlightened Action. Whatever it is, as long as it comes with Chill Clip, that is the most important thing. Now, Chill Clip is amazing. Just by itself, this weapon can, stun Overload champions with Chill by slowing enemies. And then it can also stun Unstoppable champions by ultimately freezing them with enough Chill Clip applications. Not to mention that the Chill Clip does a little AoE burst, so it slows other enemies around them, and then once you kill the enemy after it's been chilled or frozen, it's going to do some splash shatter damage. Moving on here to weapon number 2, and this is one weapon that I haven't used for some time, but as I was doing research for this video, this weapon definitely popped back up into the mind, and I definitely farmed for this weapon for so long that this weapon definitely deserves a spot on this list, and that is the Mountaintop. Now, this weapon is seriously something to be reckoned with. It is a very, very powerful weapon to have in your loadout. Now, this weapon goes in the kinetic slot, and it obviously does kinetic damage, and the God Roll for this weapon is auto-loading holster and recombination. So the way auto-loading holster works, obviously we all know it automatically reloads once you put that weapon away, but what the major part of this weapon is the recombination. Basically, the way this recombination perk works is it stacks up to 10 times by getting elemental kills. At 10 stacks, this weapon does 100% increased damage, roughly about 10% per stack, and this is extremely easy to get these stacks. Use, a Void hand cannon or a solar hand cannon, something like a Sunshot, a Word of Crota, and every kill that you get will add 1 stack to recombination for the Mountaintop. Then, once you're at 10 stacks, you pull the Mountaintop out, and this thing will just delete any sort of yellow bar or mini boss, whatever it is. This thing will hit like a truck, and it is extremely useful to use in this sort of scenario. Moving on here into weapon number 3, I have chosen the Hammerhead. Now, the Hammerhead also comes from the Into the Light, so both the Hammerhead and the Mountaintop can be obtained by going up to Zavala in the tower and attuning to these weapons, and then they will just randomly drop while, doing some sort of strike or whatever, and you can eventually just farm all these weapons out. Now, the Hammerhead is also one of my favorite machine guns to use whenever I'm not using the Commemoration, but as this is a video where I don't recommend raid weapons, I can't recommend the Commemoration. And the Hammerhead is a super solid runner-up here. Now, personally, my favorite God Roll for this weapon is Rampage and Onslaught. Now, Rampage is going to give you a 33% damage boost after just getting, 3 kills, and then you chain getting chain kills. Now, Onslaught, however, is one of the highest damage boosting perks in the game. Now, basically, this perk doesn't give you damage, but what it does is after 3 kills, it increases your fire rate by around 30 to 40%, which allows you to put out more bullets, meaning a higher DPS increase. So with Rampage and Onslaught paired together, you slowly chain kills, this thing's going to pick up in speed, and it's just going to absolutely start deleting any enemies around you. You can also run for Rampage and Killing Tally, which is also extremely good. You've basically got a 35% damage boost from Killing Tally, and then a 33% damage boost from Rampage, stacking these together, which does an extreme amount of damage. The Hammerhead is a very solid machine gun, and if you haven't got one, definitely focus and attune to it. Moving on here into weapon number 4, I have recommended the Queenbreaker. Now, every Guardian should have this weapon, as it's been a super solid linear fusion rifle to be using right now in this season, but if you haven't got one, definitely go ahead and try and pick up a Queen Breaker, and then also make sure you farm out the Catalyst for it, as the Catalyst gives it rewind rounds. Now, there isn't much to say here about the Queen Breaker. It's a very solid exotic linear fusion rifle. Everyone's been using it this season, so you should already have it and be working towards, getting the Catalyst or unlocking it, whatever it is. Definitely grab a Queen Breakers if you haven't already. Moving on here into weapon number 5, yet another exotic that I'm going to recommend on this list as one of the best primary weapons to be using. It is the Graviton Lance. I've said this gun, I've recommended this gun so many times. It's been in the game now for a very, very long time. Everyone should have a Graviton Lance. If you don't, definitely get one, start using it. This pulse rifle is unstoppable. Paired this with any sort of Void subclass, you get Devour, you get volatile rounds. This thing just explodes enemies. It's great for, keeping back at long range and staying alive. Very solid exotic. Moving on here into weapon number 6, I've chosen the Multimac CCX. One of my favorite submachine guns to be using currently in this season. Now, the gold roll was given to us from Banshee in the tower just a few months ago as a, sorry from Bungie. So everyone should have this gun, and I hope you all kept it and put it in your vault, because it is seriously a gun that you should, think about using in certain activities. Now, the gold roll that they gave us was Attrition Orbs and Kinetic Tremors, and trust me, this weapon is extremely useful. Even though it is kinetic, it gets a little bit of damage from the Kinetic Tremors, but what I mainly use this gun for is the Attrition Orbs. Being a super fast firing rate, submachine gun, I think you only have to land about 70% of the magazine to spawn, an orb from Attrition Orbs. And this can be extremely useful in higher end, harder activities. Spawning orbs for your teammates is very, very useful. Spawning them for yourself is even better. So using this gun to spawn orbs is just a very, very useful thing for any activity in the game. Moving on here into the next weapon, I've chosen the Watchful Eye, which is a heavy machine gun from this current season. And this one is definitely a very effective machine gun. So if you don't feel like grabbing the Hammerhead, definitely go ahead and grab a Watchful Eye instead. This is probably way more easier to, get. You just do some of the seasonal activities right now, and you should get one very, very quickly. Now, the guard roll is Overflow and Jolting Feedback, and these two perks together just are very, very useful. Jolting Feedback just basically jolts the enemies after you shoot them enough, and this does quite a tremendous amount of damage. And if you keep shooting them with a heavy machine gun, it's going to keep jolting them, and it is very, very effective. Jolt as well will jump around to enemies, deals a lot of damage to adds, so it's very useful on a heavy machine gun. So definitely grab one of these in the gold roll if you haven't already. Moving on to weapon number 8, I've chosen another gun from the Into the Light DLC, because these weapons from this DLC that dropped free for all of us into the light, a lot of these guns are still some of the best guns in the game. And outside of these weapons, you're going to have to enter raids and dungeons to get this sort of tier of weapon. And the Recluse is the weapon that I'm recommending here. And with the buff recently to some of the perks in the game, this submachine gun can roll with Repulsor Brace and Destabilizing Rounds, making it one of, if not the best submachine gun in the game. These two perks combined together is just disgusting. It is genuinely one of the best guns in the game, and I'm thoroughly enjoy using mine. I have a Word of Crota as well with these two exact perks on it, and no matter what activity I'm doing of any difficulty, these two perks combined together just shred enemies. They blow up, they chain, you get an overshield. It's amazing. Definitely get this gun with these two perks on it, and you'll thank me later. Moving on here into weapon number 9. This list is very hard to make. There's not too many guns in the game here that aren't extremely good that come outside of raids, so I'm going to recommend the Falling Guillotine, another Into the Light DLC weapon. Now, the Falling Guillotine is a very good sword for two main reasons. One reason is you can get it to drop with Eager Edge, one of the best movement, tech, speed, perks in the game, and it's always handy to have a sword with Eager Edge on you, ready to pull out whenever you need. So that's the first reason I've recommended this gun. But the second reason I've recommended this gun is because it's an extremely useful weapon to use for any close range boss DPS, which in the past, it has proven that this is a great weapon to have, because there's plenty of bosses in the game where a sword damage is very viable. Now, the guard roll, in my opinion, is definitely Relentless Strikes and Bait and Switch, or Frenzy and Bait and Switch, making it the highest DPS sword to be using for any, boss DPS where you use a sword. So this weapon is definitely one of a kind, and it's definitely worth having one ready to pull out than to, need one and not have it. And finally, the last weapon that I'm going to recommend on this list is a rocket launcher that pretty much every Guardian can go and get, which is especially useful as it is sort of the bare minimum for, one of the best rocket launchers that you can get with very decent perks that doesn't come from a raid, and that is the Hothead. Now, it's not a great rocket launcher, but it doesn't come from a raid, it doesn't come from a dungeon, and this is just about as good as it gets when it doesn't come from either of those two activities. Now the Hothead can be bought from Zavala in the tower by doing strikes, getting engrams, and the gold roll is auto-loading holster and explosive light. It's, it's okay, it's a decent, rocket launcher, and it will get you by until you can, get confident enough and get some of those raid weapons. But anyway, Guardians, that will pretty much wrap the list up there. There are 10 extremely solid and very useful weapons that you can use right now that you should get that don't come from, raids and dungeons, contest mode, GMs, all that. These are very 10 solid weapons you can go and get right now. But again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Later.